I have wanted to have you on the podcast for so long. I think we started following each other on Instagram years ago. And I just found your content to always have value in it, especially when it came to kids, because I feel like you're balancing being an entrepreneur, being a badass, and being a mother of four.
It's insane. I don't even believe it. When you say that, I'm like, who is she talking about?
I mean, that is crazy, number one. And we're going to get into your story. But first, I do have to tell the audience this. The reason that Mary Markle, the natural birth specialist, was on the podcast was because of you, because I stalked your highlight that said, I think fertility or pregnancy, and found her and talked to her on the phone for 5 minutes. And I was like, wait. You got to just come on the podcast. I'm like, we can't have this call. Like it was so much information. I was like, why don't you just come on the podcast and do my consultation there? And that episode just really resonated.
So, she's born to be on a mic, that woman.
She doesn't stop talking, but in the best way. Like she drops so much that you don't want her to stop.
Yeah, I was captivated. I was just, I actually couldn't believe it.
She's great. And you know what? I learned more in my first consultation. I was never going to have a home birth. I was completely scared of birth. I started exploring it after reading all of these books. I had been with an OBGYN for 20 weeks. I sat in one consultation with Mary Michael, and that woman spent 2-3 hours with me. I left believing and knowing more about my body than my OBGYN taught me in 20 weeks. I felt like confident that I could do it, you know?
That makes sense. And even with your second pregnancy, you start to realize sometimes that your body knows what it's doing. Like, I don't need every single test for every single thing, whereas the first one was maybe a little bit different. I want to go back to your childhood. You were born in Texas.
I was. Yeah.
But you haven't lived here the whole time.
I left at 16. I couldn't wait to leave.
Why?
I grew up in a town of 600 people.
Oh, wow.
600. Our nearest airport was about 3 hours away. So I really grew up on a farm until I was in 3rd grade when we moved to the big town of 10,000 people.
Where in Texas is this?
Seadrift, Texas, and then Port Lavaca, Texas. And
okay,
then
what's the nearest major city?
It's right between Houston
okay.
and Corpus and Austin. You could kind of go either one.
Okay.
But did you stand out in this town of 600? Because you're very tall, you're very pretty. I mean, I know you were a model, maybe you still are a model, but you look like a model. Okay. Like, so was that how it was when you were younger?
I think I was an awkward early model, you know, like you were made fun of and called grasshopper and things because you have really long arms and really long legs. And I didn't look like a model like I later looked living in New York City. You know, that was a little bit different. But I couldn't wait to leave because I looked around at everybody around me. I wasn't in Austin, Texas, you know, wasn't in Dallas. I was looking around at everybody around me saying, this is not what I want my life to be. I have to get out and like do something.
So you knew at a young age that you wanted more for yourself.
I had to leave and see what else was out there.
And what did your family do?
So my mom's a nurse. My dad's never really been in my life, but my mom is a nurse and his mom has always been in my life and very influential. And she was a principal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you also won an award, which was Miss Texas Teen America. So is that sort of the turning point that you realized that you could model, act, all the things?
It was, you know, I was never a pageant girl growing up in Texas. It was something that I entered and I don't even really fully remember why or how it happened. And I ended up winning. And after that, I won an agency contract in Dallas, Texas. So it was with the sister agency to Wilhelmina. And Wilhelmina at the time was like a very big agent in New York. And so this is like 16 years ago or more. How old am I? Oh, this is more. 20.
Before Apprentice, yeah. I feel like I saw you at Playmate, Playboy, something.
So in 2009, I posed and I was on the cover of April 2009 and then again in 2010 as Playmate of the Year.
Okay. First of all, how does that even happen?
I don't know. I was in Dallas, Texas. We skipped over a lot.
No, let's not skip over. Tell us tell us the story between when this,
sure.
how this transpired to Playboy.
So after winning Miss Teen Texas, I won a contract with this agency in Dallas who immediately sent me to New York, and I was signed with Wilhelmina, which was their sister agency. through that, I had made, like, my parents were like, come home. Like, you can't, stay gone very long. This is just like a one-time thing. You're going for a month. And that turned into like years. I ended up walking before I was 18 for Versace and Balenciaga and really big designers. So I was then making more per year than my parents made. I mean, more per show or, than my parents made in a year. So,
What is that like? Because I've talked to a couple of different people on the podcast that have said that. And what does that feel like when you're that young?
Well, I always knew money wasn't just abundant, right? So I knew I needed to make my own, but I also knew that if I was able to make money, I didn't have to go home. So I'd show up for work and, go to all the casting calls, and I wasn't like a big partier because I knew I had to make it work.
And what about all the things in the modeling world at this time? Like, I know especially at the time you modeled, eating disorders, drugs, drinking, you just stayed out of it or what?
All of it. I'd be right next to it. So, I'd be at whatever the hottest spot was. They shouldn't have been letting me into those hot spots because I was like not even 20, but of course I'm in, and you're at, all of these different tables. And what I saw during that period was insane.
Like what?
Like, you're next to the table or at your table, a huge bags of like cocaine. Never touched it, didn't care. Like I would stay out, I would dance, I'd party. I'd want to know like what was going on and to assess like every situation, but I never had an interest in that. Alcohol, that was it.
And you're obviously already thin, so you didn't have to worry about all these things that all these
No,
models.
they told me I was so big. Yeah. So I was told that I was very, very big.
What?
Then, yeah, I know.
So what do you say at a young age?
It's hard.
I mean,
You believe it, and you start dieting or you start watching what you're eating, and you're like, oh, I can't really eat that. It's a mind.
So when did the Playboy, Playmate, Hugh Hefner era start?
I invested money into a medical spa in Texas, and I had like laser hair removal. Somehow I convinced a doctor to sign off as my medical director when I was 21 years old. Somehow he risked his license and believed in my medical spa. 4 years after that, I sold it, and I was in Dallas, Texas. And I ran into Holly Madison at the W Hotel.
Okay, is this Holly Madison while she's on the show, or is this before?
While she had her show. I think it was the very beginning of her show, maybe.
Okay, and does she like poach you?
Yeah, pretty much.
How?
Comes up to me, asked me to come by, and she'd be somewhere tomorrow or that afternoon. I can't remember exactly. And she wanted to meet me, and she had a photographer here in town. And so I actually went by and met her. I think it was the same day.
And were you familiar with who she was and what she was doing?
I knew who she was, and I knew that it was like a little bit felt risky, but I still did it because I like to know what's out there, and I like to explore and like see. And so I met with her, and after that, I was flown out to Los Angeles to do like a test shoot, and I did it. And then they invited me to shoot like an actual spread in the magazine and the cover. And first person I called was my grandmother in Texas.
Oh, I'm sure she loved that.
Because I was like, okay. And I entertained the idea to her, like I wasn't going to do it. And like, it was just flattering, but I was like wanting to do it. And she was like, oh, if I was your age, I'd go for it.
Oh, grandma's cool.
Yeah. And so I was like, really? You'd pose naked? She's like, yeah. So I did it.
And you're on the cover the first time you do it?
Yeah.
So
I had Seth Rogen blowing a fan up my skirt in like this classic.
What the hell was he doing there?
He was also shooting a cover. Like we shot it together.
That's kind of juxtaposition,
Wait,
right?
so
Listen, I love Seth, but like
there's no you hear all these stories about how you have to date Hugh Hefner and be with Hugh Hefner, and there was none of that.
No. I was already hosting a show that was on E! Entertainment at the time. It was called Inside Fashion. So I pitched the show for Inside Fashion where I would go backstage and interview designers, makeup artists. This is a long time ago. And they took it and ran with it. And it was like in Canada and the US. And maybe that's why I got a cover at that point too, because it wasn't like I already had a job.
You were known.
A little bit.
What about, is there cattiness in the mansion with the Playmates, or is everyone friends? Because I feel like it either goes either way. You're either going to tell me you guys were great friends, or there's cattiness.
I don't think that I was in as deep to like have all the cattiness. I wasn't there every day, and they have like weekend nights where you can go like twice a week and like eat and watch movie night. And, I would stop by like here and there because I lived in Los Angeles, but I wasn't there on a nightly basis. So I don't know,
It sounds like
there were a
you
couple
were pretty
girls that I
wise.
stayed close with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like you stayed out of the.
I stayed out just enough that I never saw any of that behavior that you're talking about, like the nights in the bedroom and all this stuff you read about. I never saw it in person.
I've read every single book on like down the rabbit hole, all the books she wrote. And then I read also Kendra's. And so like some of those nights were wild.
I haven't read the books either. So I probably should read the books.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you got to read the books. They're juicy.
I was definitely there when Holly and Kendra were there and Bridget.
I feel like you don't have time to read the books because you have 4 kids and you're running an empire and you have a husband. But if you do have time, the books are pretty juicy.
I feel like they'd make me sad because I saw like a certain side of Hef and I didn't see that other side. So I feel like it'd make me a little sad.
Like sad meaning like you saw a better side of him or a good side of him?
Like I saw the best side of him probably.
And so this would kind of darken that image. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is okay.
Also
the
think
truth is okay.
that there must be something that you let off that was a boundary of respect.
Probably.
Like I can just tell by meeting you in person that you like don't put up with shit. And so maybe he felt that like you weren't the one to go for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But how do you choose your victim, right? Like, I don't know.
Maybe there's something about you that was just like, cocaine's next to me, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Drinking's there, but I'm not going to engage.
Well, I would drink.
I mean, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like blackout or go in the room and like have 12 sums with him.
Right. Yeah. No.
I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall to see Hugh Hefner having a 12 sum. I'm not going to lie. So at what point do you get approached for the Celebrity Apprentice?
God, this is so hard.
Is it like
after Playboy?
Okay.
It was after Playboy.
And what's your experience with that?
I really showed up thinking I wasn't going to have to work. And I remember being shocked at how hard the work it was. Like, you don't have anybody to go like to FedEx for you. You're physically going. So I thought like if you're signing on and it's like at the time, Little John, and I had different people in my group. I was like, no way are they going to send them to FedEx because you're going to get like accosted, But no, like you don't have helpers. Like you're really doing the work. And so it was probably a lot harder than I thought it would. There were 13 episodes. I left on episode 9. I was the youngest and one of the last females to leave.
Do you think that when you came on that they underestimated you or that they knew you were a
that
threat?
or I was so scared of the crazy people that were on it that I just stayed far away from that part of it. And so I just lasted.
Who else was in your cast besides Little John?
Nene Leakes, Nikki Taylor, Lisa Rinna.
Who was the craziest? What does it rhyme with?
Oh, I just tell you. I mean, I guess it was... Nene was funny. She wasn't crazy. I mean, she was just funny. The craziest. Oh, there was a guy. His name was Gary.
Gary Busey?
Yes.
Oh, Christ.
That was scary.
Wait, is Gary Busey the one that has the chihuahuas? No, that's Mickey Rourke.
That's Mickey Rourke.
Michael.
Gary Busey's right up there on the crazy list.
Is he actually that crazy?
No, he was so crazy. And they give you all like suites. You all have your own like house apartment inside of Trump Soho. Not Trump Soho. Trump.
I saw Gary Busey throw a handful of spaghetti at a guy's face at Dan Tana's.
Oh.
And I wasn't surprised because it was Gary Busey. I was like,
when he was fired, he left a Post-it on my door and it said that he left like the items, like some orange juice and some items for me in his refrigerator. And I was like, that's not happening, Gary.
It's like,
I'm not borrowing your orange juice.
Here's some roofie orange juice with a little bit of...
No, Gary didn't do that. He's just a little out there.
GHB croissants.
No,
you never knew what he would say or when he would scream across the room.
What are some moments that you look back on that are so crazy, especially after when Trump became president? Do you look back and you're like, holy shit, this is like iconic?
When he became president, that was crazy. Because I'm like, wait, I'm not supposed to know the president,
Was he nice? Let's talk, like, forget like him being president and everything. Was he nice in Celebrity Apprentice?
He was nice to me.
He was nice to you, but he
wasn't very rude to people around him, but he was very nice to me.
Like his helpers, he was rude to?
Or other contestants.
Yeah, and other contestants, yeah.
So basically he wanted to have sex with you.
He might have, but
he
no.
for sure did.
Yeah.
But then he probably felt the boundary that Hugh Hefner felt.
Yeah, because I never, was like preyed upon like that,
I mean, he's not that hot. Like, let's be honest.
No.
What about his daughter?
Well, was you?
No.
Yeah,
That's a lot of saggy balls in one conversation.
Oh,
yeah.
You don't know that, Lauren.
Hugh Hefner.
These guys might keep it tight. You
Hugh
don't know.
Hefner and Trump
don't
together.
know.
No, Michael.
You don't know, Lauren. You never know.
Michael, I can tell by the way someone keeps their hair how their balls are.
My wife has
can?
this whole thing where she thinks, like the other day she was trying to explain blue balls to another person on the show, like as if she has experienced this.
How? No, I was saying being pregnant's like blue balls.
But I don't think you can compare either of them. And I would never assume that I would know what it's like to be pregnant.
Like you're right about that.
Yeah, it's like you're
Oh, God.
you're,
Now
you're
I'm gonna be
blue
ganged up
you're
on.
blue balled and you're blue balled and
Yeah.
you're blue balled and you're blue, and then it's like month
So
10.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable, and then you have to let it out.
Well, they're both uncomfortable, I assume. But yeah.
It's like having blue balls for 9
I get the
and a half months.
analogy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we're at the point right now of this pregnancy, just like a side note, where he just doesn't understand I mean, he's never going to understand how uncomfortable it is. So any analogy helps.
Yeah.
I just told him
Yeah.
to just say yes, dear.
Perfect.
Anyway,
Well, sometimes she says, don't say anything. And so I just kind of stand there with like a deer in
Wait.
headlights.
I mean, what about when she's in labor? Like, are you allowed to talk? Can you?
It depends. Sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't. I was in a
No.
corner at one point.
Yeah, I put my husband in the corner too. He wasn't allowed to speak without being spoken to. He was able to move my affirmations. I had like this poster board and he had to follow me with it and just put it where I could see it and then like leave.
he sounds smart though.
Yeah.
You know,
He-
we took our
He
Yeah,
time.
well, she had
followed
me. She wanted
very
me like
closely.
behind the sheet and in the corner. But I get like I was like wherever you
I
want me.
don't
You know?
need you up my butthole when I'm
Yeah.
pushing stuff out. Okay, so
Yeah.
Celebrity Apprentice, was the whole experience wild? Like looking back, is there anything that you remember that really stands out?
I remember being glad I was fired finally because I was like, I lasted a lot longer than I thought I was supposed to last. Like there was nothing crazy that stood out. I was happy because I remember I got fired and I had to fly to London. I had already committed to another job and I got fired like the day I needed to leave. So it was kind of perfect. I did my exit interview and still made my plane ticket. And what if I wouldn't have been able to leave? I would have canceled on a job last minute and it's just I don't know.
After Celebrity Apprentice airs, do you get recognized everywhere, or was it like a different tier of fame?
Maybe a little bit in Los Angeles but not a lot.
Not a lot.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so at what point do you meet your husband after this?
I met my husband in 2009.
Is this simultaneously starting your company, or did you start your company after?
I started my company after my first child.
Okay.
I met my husband in 2009, and then we were kind of pen pals, and I was dating other people.
What do you mean? What do you mean pen pals?
So I was dating other people, and I knew Robert would never be okay with like, I wasn't ready to settle down. And I knew he was the type that would never be okay if I was like going to go date somebody and then come back and then like date somebody or date two people at the same time. Like I knew when it was time to date Robert that I had to be with just Robert. Like he wasn't going to be like, she can just like meander around Los Angeles and like hop on a flight and not tell you exactly where she's going. You know, like he's just more serious than that. And so when we met, pen pals because he was in Switzerland, I was in the US. He'd invite me to fly out. He'd say, can you meet me in Paris to, go to some opera, very fancy. I'm in Los Angeles and I'm not thinking about the opera. And I'd say, no way am I getting on a 13-hour flight to Paris with, I don't know you like that. And so there was all of these crazy invites that I just said no to. And finally he invited me to Austin, Texas to go to the first ever F1. And I said, okay. It was my first yes in like 3 years. I said, okay, my mom's very close to there. So if this gets weird, I'm just going to go see my parents.
And you had been out of Texas this whole time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of like went to visit family and him and dated pretty much from that moment on.
He is a smart man. What is it like to date someone who is, I mean, you're extremely smart too. You guys met your match. Like, is that like wild when you're that young to be dating someone who is that smart?
He never stops. Like he never stops working, never stops thinking. He's always, I would say he's probably never satisfied and never going to be satisfied. He has to keep going.
They call it blissfully dissatisfied.
I know someone.
Yeah.
I know someone like that.
Yeah.
Don't
Like
worry.
you always think, right? Like they always say, like when you make your first million, like that's the dream, and like you're going to be so happy, and then you make that million. And you might be satisfied for a second, but
And you're
there's
actually a
not
little disappointed
and then
because you
you're
think
like,
it's going to
yeah.
be a lot better than it is.
And then you have a new goal in mind, and his work ethic is so impressive to me. And like, I think that I have learned to fill every single minute that I have because of him, because I watched him do it, you know?
Like, what do
And
you
it's
mean?
inspiring.
What's you guys' morning routine? Do you have like a whole thing?
Well, it depends.
Okay,
But
where you are.
yeah, it depends where we are, what city, if we're together in that city or not, because like he could be traveling, he could be fundraising, because right now he's raising a big fund. Um, and then like I'm in Austin. He came into Austin last night. I flew in this morning. You know, it just depends.
Before you launched your business, what was the best piece of advice he gave you and how have you applied it?
You have to be able to make money without physically showing up. I would say like you can't have to physically show up. You have to be able to do it from anywhere. And you have to have money working for you when you're sleeping or when you're, you know, and you might constantly work, but to have it, you know, to go to sleep at night and being able to have a beauty business or sell product while you're sleeping or somewhere, that was probably the biggest thing. Like,
You can't be constrained by time or location.
yeah. And you know what? When you're a model, you have to show up to get paid.
Ah,
And I don't know if it's his way of telling me like, come to the bright side and don't, you know, model anymore or don't go and be an actress or what it was, but that was part of it.
what do you think is the best advice you've taught him? It could be about anything.
Oh, I think I teach him everything. I think he adopts my ideas. Like sometimes I think like he like I'm talking about something in the house and he's like laughing, like kind of, I can tell he's kind of like letting me go on, but enjoying it a little too much. And then I'll look at him and I'll tell him, yeah, you'll be talking about this in 2 days to somebody. 2 days later, he'll be talking to somebody about, you know, the metaverse. Or, you know, very early on, I was like, yes, you know, I'm going to have a house in the metaverse and I'm going to be buying art in my house for the metaverse. And like, I go on and on and on about it. You know, my outfits, my this and that. And he was looking at me like it's crazy. Like, this is a while back. But you know what? He listened to my ideas and I heard him talk about it.
They always do that. They always take our ideas and then they make it as their own and pre-package it. And sometimes he tells me my idea that I told him 3 days ago was his own.
Yeah.
idea.
It's because we're listening.
I get that.
No, but you're like
We're
not
listening.
listening, kind of. You're like you're passively listening. And then you'll tell me the idea.
Well, I've said I think the most important decision you can make is the person you choose to spend your life with, right? Because like you make the wrong decision there. Imagine you're listening to all the wrong things.
It's true.
Right?
That's
Like-
major.
Will Smith, I just finished his autobiography. I know there's a little controversy around Will Smith.
Why?
so
What did he
everyone-
do? What happened to
Calm
him?
down. But in his book, he says the two most important decisions that you make in life is your partner and your location. I thought that was a good one. It's true. Like the location's important as well. Okay, so I think now that I'm talking to you, when I started following you is when you got married, which your wedding was the gnarliest wedding I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, my husband still has a lot to say about it.
It was in Italy.
It was in Ravello. Yeah.
I think like you had like 3 different dress options, if I'm correct, and like it was so gnarly, but it was also so chic. How did you like manage the juxtaposition of that?
I don't know. I worked with a great events person, but I knew exactly what I wanted. And, you know, it was bad. I was vacationing, you know, on the Amalfi Coast before the wedding, the month before. And it got really bad because they started writing about it. Like at the Italian, paparazzi and things.
Why?
They started writing about what was happening. And like my husband then is reading it in the mornings at like, we're in like 2 towns over. And he's like,
shut the fuck up.
why are helicopters dropping off 50 loads of, you know, equipment and things on this cliff for our wedding? Like, I'm like, honey, no, I don't think that's true. And then he makes a call and he's like, hope it's true. You know, like there keeps having like all of these interactions. And then, you know, I had like this huge production happen as a surprise for my husband. And I had these dancers, I should pull up the YouTube, put together a show from like our first meeting to like all of the steps along, like our dating history up to our marriage, including our first son. And they're dancers and they turn their body into like tables or to like a car and like go through the whole show, airplanes. And he kept seeing outside the window them building this box. And it was a surprise, so I couldn't tell him what it was. And he says, well, what is this box? Like, why can't I know anything that's going on? I'm like, it's fine. It's to put, I had to think on the fly. I said, oh, it's to put our monogram up on. And he goes, well, this is just stupid. You're letting them build a box when you could just project it on like a flat, so I have to hear it because we're like over there in real time. And I'm like, can you just let me surprise you? Just stop.
Was he surprised?
Yeah, he loved it. He cried. It's like the best gift.
I mean, your wedding,
Yeah.
you guys, everyone go Google it. It was the gnarliest wedding I've ever seen. It was beautiful.
It was fun. We
Yeah.
had so many friends in town for the week. It was fun.
I feel like I might need to redo my wedding.
No, it's done. It's too late for you.
No, I
It's
might need to
over.
redo it.
Go on
It's over.
vacation
Yeah,
instead.
yeah.
After you guys get married, it sounds like you already had your first.
We had our, yep.
And is this when you talked to Mary Markle and you did a natural birth, or is this was your first?
My
hospital?
first was the natural birth.
Your first was the natural. Okay, so first I want to hear all about a natural birth from you, especially with Mary Markle.
So I listened to Mary Michael's podcast here. And I remember one comment you made. You said, but what does it look like? Like, my house is all white. My house is all white too. I have cashmere rugs in my bedroom. Like white. Nobody wears shoes in my house. I'm a scary, like in any house. I don't care like where you're at, you're not putting shoes on. Like, if I see you in them, you're taking them off, like carrying them to the door.
We're having a fight about it because I'm fine with them taking off, but she's got to get somebody like a bench to sit on because we have all these.
I had to do that too for my husband. He requested that same
Yeah, you
thing.
need a-
So
you need a- you
I
need a
did
bench.
get like a little bench, and
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
get a
did- I
bench,
had to
but
do that.
here's my problem.
I stand
with
like a
him.
flamingo in my cowboy boots. I'm like, come on.
He does take his shoes off, but then he'll do little secret tricks. Like
Yeah.
he'll try to walk with his cowboy boot from the laundry room to the door.
Well, sometimes,
And it's like 5 feet. It's only 5 feet, but like
well, I got to get to
no.
one
Like,
and then I
get
got to go back out,
the
know?
fecal matter.
my husband
shoes.
does it all the time. I'm like, why are you upstairs right now? And it like infuriates me like nothing else. I guess because I know that my babies crawl around on the floor and like
Yes.
they live on the floor.
Your husband's braver than me. I would never venture up the stairs, but I would go across to the
I
laundry
Every
made
once
him
in
room.
a while,
crawl
I
on his
catch
knees.
him.
No, I made him crawl on his knees through the room. So with a natural birth, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be dead honest. One of the things that does give me anxiety is I like my house the way I like it, and it feels like it would be like a crime scene, and I'm not down for that.
There's no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you are, and I love if you beat me at this, but like I have a lot of OCD in my house, and like I can't get on with my day unless things look a certain way. Like, I have to have clean countertops. Like, I can't move on.
Yeah, we have that. You guys you can talk about that on a whole nother podcast for hours. I'm sure you two would go on and on about that.
Yeah. So I like things to look a certain way. And I was very freaked out about these rugs, which my husband loves more than I do. And she promised me nothing would happen to them and that it would be like nothing. Like, she would clean up all of it and you'd never even see it. And she's right.
She said she brings in like a tactical team. Like, she's got like, it's not just her.
No, it's not just her. One of my birds, I had 3 other people in. The other one, I had 2 other people. And she comes in with all of this equipment, but you're free and you're in your house and you're getting to like walk around. You can eat, which is like huge for me. You can't be hungry and then run a marathon,
Why don't they let you eat?
in case they have to put you under or in case you go into cesarean.
I'm in sneak eat.
Yeah.
I'm sneaking eat.
Yeah, you should.
Wait,
Nobody can tell you not to eat. Just eat
But
it.
here's another thing, and I'm going to be honest, like just a lot of different energy in your house, though. How do you know that the people she brings in are the right vibe?
I think they're in the birthing space, so they know what a birthing woman needs because they've all done it before. And when you're in that, they know not to ask you a question.
Like,
Because
if no one's
anytime
asking
you
you
have
for
to
a
answer
selfie.
a question, no.
Are
no,
you
no, no.
Hope from Celebrity Apprentice? Can I get a selfie?
No, that would be awful.
Okay,
But
okay.
you know what? I have a trust issue too with like, you're just going to show up to my house and I'm like, I don't know why you're here or what you want from me. And like, can I trust you? And I don't trust anybody. Like, this is bad, but I don't. And these people from the birthing community, they really don't want to interrupt a birth. They don't. And they're just not those people. They're
It's
not
like
the
their
people
thing.
that want the selfie. They probably don't even maintain an Instagram page. They've probably never taken a selfie themselves. They probably wouldn't recognize a celebrity if they were dining next to one, Like,
And-
I don't want to say they're like completely hidden, but they have other interests.
Did Mary Markle? I'm
Michael.
saying
Michael.
I'm saying
Mary
her
Michael.
Mary
Mary
Michael.
Michael.
I can remember that, I guess. Did Mary Michael come in with like a flourishing energy, like she was in her element, like you didn't have to do anything?
You know, I love Mary Michael, and I went back to her for baby too. But there were times in my appointments, because she tells me everything so many times, that I was like really annoyed with her. And I would tell her, like, I'm just feeling anxious because you're making me anxious, and I'm feeling a little annoyed with this conversation because I already know what you're telling me. Like, I get it. I promise I get it. But when she showed up, she's always a professional, and she's like has so much knowledge. But when she showed up, it was like a pro. Like, you got to see her in her element, and she was like, she had everybody working, and everybody has a job, and people are in the kitchen and they're sterilizing, and like those are just things that they would probably never use and never even used for my birth, but they go and do sterile procedure just in case, because you want everything ready.
How bad does it hurt? Be honest.
Well, I've never had a medicated birth, so I can't tell you. Like, I can't compare. Like, I'm guessing nothing to something. Contractions and all of that for me were only huge when I got to transition time, and that's almost time to push.
Transition time, that's when, like, right before you have to push.
Yeah.
And so how, like, was it primal? You're screaming? Like, what's your husband doing?
I wasn't screaming, but you're definitely like using every resource you have, like breathing and things. I had back labor on my second, so my husband was putting like pressure on my lower back in the shower, and water really helped me. So like the heat, I wanted the heat to touch my body, because you have certain like nerve receptors in there, you can get that to beat the pain. And so like that sensation will like go to the brain faster than like the pain you're having. So like water really, really helps, especially from a shower or like hard pressure. But yeah, it hurts, but it's so forgotten, and it's so short. And you immediately are after birth are like so awake and like alive. I've never had the epidural, but you're not drugged at all.
The epidural, I feel like, is really different than what you're describing, because I couldn't move to get in a shower. Like,
oh no, I got up.
No.
I cuddled with the baby for a long time, but then I was like, you know what? I really want to shower. The 10 minutes it took me to go shower, or less, because it's just like bed to shower. They had fixed the bed completely, and it was now ready for like me to sleep in that night, completely clean. I was in my own clothes, back in bed with baby.
And did you get postpartum anxiety or depression?
Not that I know of. I know that I had hormonal things happening, like imbalances and things, but I don't think I ever had any of like postpartum.
And what do you do if you rip? Did they stitch you up there?
She told me that if I learned in our exams like what to do and how to relax the perineum, just like she tells me, that I won't rip.
So much to do.
She takes like gauze and puts it in castor oil, and she has it heating. And when it's time to push, she takes that gauze and she's going to support between your vagina, like perineum right there, so that the pressure is applied evenly so you don't tear.
And so you didn't have an experience of like tearing a lot?
I never tore in either birth.
And then your second one, you did the exact same thing with Mary Michael.
Exact same thing, Mary Michael. I was doing Primrose, to soften the cervix. I was actually inserting Primrose in my last few weeks. I was doing vitamin E every night on that area so that it would be really soft, stretch more than, without tearing. So there's all these, I had, vitamin E and Primrose on my nightstand that I would just like.
You just massage your vagina hole.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't, first of all, like, let me just break this down. I can't shave my legs because I can't reach my legs. And then like shaving the vagina, you have to like get a mirror. And like, I mean, it's like, I can't even see what's going on. So now I have to like do the evening Primrose and the vitamin E and the shave. It's just a lot going on.
You can't see any of it either.
When do you just because I'm going to ask a selfish question. When do you think like it's time to like take a step back when you're pregnant and like relax? Because I'm a go-go person like you. And I feel like I don't know when it's time to like step back.
I think for you, it was like 3 weeks ago. But here we are.
I don't know how far along you are, really.
I'm 32 and a half weeks.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I have to go. But then suddenly you're going to get this urge, which is like now or very soon in 3 weeks or some, and it's going to be like that nesting feeling, and you're going to have like this burst of energy. So
that's what my sister-in-law said.
Yeah. So I think you're going to have a big burst of energy. I'm the wrong person to ask.
Okay. You worked until 40 weeks.
Yeah. And I also,
I knew you were going to say that.
it's so bad. You shouldn't though. Nobody should. They
But
should stop.
in your
But
book, Your
I know
Body
I'm
is
gonna
Magic. Did
rest
people
after.
did people say anything that's similar about that or no?
Yeah, you should definitely rest. And, but you know what? I think that when you keep going, your body is like ready to give birth. I mean, you're moving, the baby's getting into position, your hips are moving, they're widening, all the stuff's happening. And if you're if you're not moving around and not doing anything, that's a lot of times the baby will flip and all kinds of
It
stuff
makes sense
happens.
if you think about it from like an
If you stay
evolutionary
upright.
standpoint. I doubt that women of past ages were kind of just like waiting, like they couldn't wait around, right? They
No,
had to
so
be
you were
moving.
upright and you were moving, and the laying on your back is when you like get in trouble and like baby starts flipping the other way.
What
And
were
so
some other things you were doing that was holistic during your pregnancy that you think have just really helped? And obviously your book, like you're such an expert in this space, your product line, like what are some things that you used in your toolbox?
I did follow Mary Michael's whole vitamins, and she told me, do you want a basic baby? Because I was like, oh no, I'm good. She was like, she goes, you have to get on all these vitamins. And I would try dismissing her, like, Mary Michael, I've got this, I'm good, I'm on this like really great one. She goes, oh, you're on one. Do you want a basic baby? And I was like, no, Mary Michael, I don't want a basic
She's
baby.
a character.
And then she gave me like smoothies and all of this stuff to do every day, which kept me distracted enough to.
Smoothies, vitamins, primrose, and
Vitamin E, acupuncture.
Okay.
Taking
vitamins as we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my organic mushrooms. She told me to eat a lot of.
I just got those.
This is such a good brand.
These are the best.
Symbiotica. And you know what?
Got the
my
D3.
daughter likes it. The D3 is good. So is the B12.
I just ordered that one.
Your husband should take you should both, but your husband too, the D3, the CoQ10, it's really good for men.
Okay.
He takes like a bunch of their vitamins and he got me onto them, these packets.
Yeah, I started following the founder a few years ago.
He's your vibe.
Like, I love it.
Yeah, he is. He's like very like, I feel like he would have almost maybe been a good person to interview for your next book.
Oh, okay.
Because he knows so much about vitamins.
Hi, Charvine.
Love that.
Yeah, that was like a little free ad spot for them.
Yep, there's another one for you.
Symbiotica.
You're welcome, Charvine.
Sponsors here.
Okay, so after your second baby, was the birth similar to your first or was it different?
It was different. I had back labor in my second, and I don't know why.
What is that? I don't know what that means.
It's this crazy feeling where you have incredible pressure on your back. It's in your lower back, and like your contractions are in the front, but you feel the pain in the back, and it really hurts. Like it's uncomfortable. It feels like you couldn't stretch it out. Like if you bent over and you started twisting and stretching, like you wouldn't be able to, the pain wouldn't go away. I actually didn't realize I was in labor, but I was in labor that day, all day. I woke up with my back hurting. I went and I did, at the Legree studio here, I went and did a workout at 1:00 and my water broke at 6 p.m. So 5 hours after I did this little Legree machine, I didn't know I was in labor, but my back was hurting since the morning.
How many weeks were both your babies?
My first was 42 weeks. I know. Horrible.
When was that? Zaza was.
My next was 39 weeks and 4 days. Okay. So it was so different.
A little better.
Yeah.
Better.
So see,
Yeah.
the first just like goes longer, but I think like your second will be earlier.
Zaza was hanging. I didn't think she was going to come out.
I know. Zaza
Wanted to stay.
No.
Hendrix wanted to stay too.
Yeah. They like want to stay up there. They wouldn't come out.
They only, you know what? You were doing the right things. You were giving your body exactly what it needed because your baby's only going to decide or your baby and your body are going to decide to, have the baby and give birth when your placenta can no longer support all of its needs. So there's going to be a time when, your first is very comfortable. You're doing all of the things. You're getting a lot more rest. So your placenta is so healthy. Like if you look at your placenta from your first birth, I don't know if you looked at yours. I looked at mine and like laid it out and unfolded it and things. And then I looked at my second, and my second one, because I had so much less rest, I was working. I had my first baby to take care of. It was so much smaller, and he came earlier.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is weird.
Did you look at your placenta?
No, I would have looked at it. Totally. I would have rolled it out like a fruit fucking roll up in front of Michael, but I didn't know that I could do that. This one I'll be rolling out. I want to look at it.
It's actually beautiful. It's like the tree of life.
I'm going to Instagram story it.
Oh God. All
What?
right.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. I'm sure you ate your placenta, correct?
I did.
How did you eat it?
in pill form.
Okay, so did I.
Encapsulated.
That's what I did too.
I don't think that I could put it in a smoothie. They offered that to me and I just didn't think I could do it.
I could eat it like a steak at Ruth Chris.
No, you couldn't.
problem.
No,
Swear
don't
on
do
my
it.
life.
Don't do it.
I'm not going to because the option is the pills. But if this is what I'll say.
Don't do it.
If you told me the only way to ingest it was eating it like a steak, I would 100%
sure, but that's a different
still
that's
eat
Does
a
it.
it get
different
to be
scenario.
flavored with something?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
throw a little McCormick's on there, maybe
Oh,
some
Jesus.
Siete seasoning, like
Yeah. Like if
sparkling
you told
water.
me I couldn't have it and I had to eat it, I'd probably go that route, but I'd really have to mask that taste. I don't even know what it tastes like, but I would imagine because the encapsulation isn't that
I
nice.
imagine it's
No
pretty
problem.
like gamey.
I'll eat anything. I will eat anything for feeling good and beauty. Like I just will.
Well, thank
I
God we
respect
can
that.
put it in the pill capsules because we thank God for technology. We don't need to do that.
What are some other things that you did post your 2 births that you think really helped with the recovery? Because this book that you've written, I feel like it's so much about being a woman and birth and afterbirth, pre-birth. Like what are some things people can do that you think really helped?
I really tried. You know how I talk about like don't stay horizontal and don't lay down a lot when you are pregnant, you know? Like you want to be upright and moving. You don't want to just stay in one position. I know. Afterwards, you want to lay down because you want your uterus to heal very high and you don't want like the hysterectomy and all of these other issues. So you want it to heal really high. So you want to be on your back and you want to lay down and
That's
have
what
it heal
I think
high.
Mary Michael said too, like 80% of the time you want to be laying down after birth.
for weeks, like a couple weeks.
I was up like nothing happened and it was a
Yeah.
big mistake looking back. I was running around, I was out at restaurants, like I was like it was fine.
Well, this time the plan is she's going to actually take a long maternity leave because the first time she just never stopped. We're just like baby
It's
and then go.
exciting too because it's your first. So you have like this boost of adrenaline and you're so proud of this baby and you just like made this baby and you're like proud. So you want to take it in the world and it's a whole new life because you get to like go somewhere with a baby. Like, you know, you grow up playing baby dolls and like you want to take your baby to like Target or like wherever you're going, right? But like baby 2 felt more chill because I was like, oh, if I take you out, I also have to take you out and you're walking. And like, you know, then this one, it's like some of the excitement about like taking them out right away wasn't as exciting for me personally,
No, I can see that.
you know?
Did you do any belly binding or waist trainers? And do you believe in that?
I didn't. No. I do believe in it and I think it works. Because I worked out my entire pregnancies, I didn't do it afterwards because I think I still had that muscle support just from like little thing like planks on the knees and things. So I was able to like maintain some of that, but I do believe it works.
I keep hearing this pregnancy that I never heard the first pregnancy about how important it is to rebuild your pelvic floor.
So important.
Can you talk? We've had no one on the podcast to talk about this. Can you talk a little bit like how you'd go about this?
So in the book, you'll see Brooke Cates. She has a whole program for it and you can sign up online and you can, you know, read her and follow her. But if you don't have that muscle there, it is stretched. It is weak. You know, you have to start rebuilding from the ground up. And she gives you steps because you can't just hop into it and do things that you were doing before and think that you rebuilt the muscle. You have to really start very granular and start with like a certain part of it. And she gives you like specific moves. And then when you can do those up to a certain amount of time, then you move on to this other exercise. And so she's really good with that because if you have a doctor that tells you that like when you sneeze, if you pee a little, like your pelvic floor was not rebuilt right, you know?
I didn't do pelvic floor exercises for my first, but I did Kegels. Is that the same thing?
It would be the same thing, but she says that you can do them in a certain step so it like rebuilds them from like ground up, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at you on a
Brooke is so
Thursday
good.
work day talking about Kegels and the pelvic
I'm a
floor.
little bit lost here at this point. I'm not going to lie, guys.
Kegels are so good, but I feel like I need a reminder. to
Well,
do
I
them.
feel like I'm going to go to the Vagina Whisperer. Have you heard of him?
The little laser they put in and they like tighten everything.
No, this isn't a laser. This is like, we got to go. We got to be efficient, like tie it up, whatever. This is a guy in New Jersey. I saw him on Daily Mail and he sits at this desk and it's like this huge desk. And behind him is like 300 vaginas, all different shapes and sizes that he has like sculpted.
So is it like sculpted from the outside or the inside?
Both. He does
Okay.
both. He can
Okay.
do whatever you want. So if like, let's say like you're like, I want a tighten here, I want a tuck here, I want like a hole here. Like he can do it all. And he's known as like the vagina whisperer. And I just am putting it out there. If he's listening, like please come on
Hell
the
of a thing to
podcast.
be
Come on
known
the
for.
show.
Yeah, come on the show.
Christ.
But so my thing is like if you do all the pelvic floor and you do the Kegels, do you think that it really makes that big of a difference?
I think it makes a huge difference.
Okay.
It's a muscle.
Okay. I'm
So,
gonna
like,
try birth
muscles-
exercise.
You can't like tone a muscle. You can make it bigger, right? I
Right.
guess that is toning it, but it can only get smaller or bigger. There's not like a middle. Like you don't get to choose exactly. I don't know. Yeah.
For your third baby, did you want a surrogate by choice? What was the circumstance? How was the freezing of the embryos process? Like if someone's listening and they do want to do a surrogate, tell us.
So the reason I started looking into a surrogate is I had an autoimmune that was wouldn't let me with the medication I was taking at the time. It's actually an infusion you have to take like once a year. You can't carry, but your eggs are healthy. Since then, that autoimmune is now in remission, and I probably could carry because I haven't had the medicine in like 2 or 3 years now, which is great. But at that time, I wouldn't have been able to carry. So started looking at a few things. I was interested in surrogacy, and I never was completely freaked out by it. I was just interested and wanted to learn more. I called an agency, and the agency I used was Conceivabilities out of Chicago. Since then, they've grown. You do lots of psychology tests, interviews. They want to know about your past birth experiences or like your thoughts and your preferences. And, there were lots of interviews before they ever introduce you to somebody. And I was paired with a surrogate that I loved. And she was my first introduction, which is, I think, so rare to find.
How many did you interview after her? Or did you just say this is
None,
the one?
because I knew that was my person.
Okay, so this is so interesting to me because I feel like so many people are interested in this, but they're scared to say they're interested.
Yeah.
First of all, when you take your egg and your husband's sperm, you make an embryo, and then she gets implanted with it,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And are you there?
Yeah. My husband wasn't, but I flew out. I felt like it was a very personal thing. It's your baby going into somebody. So I had to be there. So flew out. I'm there with her in the room. There's all of these things. Like she has to make sure her bladder's really, really full. How uncomfortable. Like you're going to have the implantation, but with a full bladder. I know. So uncomfortable. They turn her like a little bit upside down after they put it in. Before they put it in, you see it up on a screen so you can see, oh, that's your embryo. It's pulled up with a microscope. And I just felt like it was a very personal thing. And like I needed to be there. I was holding her hand. She got acupuncture during it because it's supposed to help with like results. So it was like,
Let me
it's
ask you-
amazing to see your baby before it's your baby.
I mean,
I saw the
wow.
embryo up here.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have like
Cool.
a kind of a random, maybe strange questions. Do you stress out when you're not carrying and and it's being carried somewhere else? Like, are you worried? Like, what's that person doing? Where they're
I
walking?
thought I was going to be
Yeah.
the biggest control freak about that. I thought that I was going to make her move into my house.
I think she's a little bit worse than me, maybe.
I thought she was going to have to like move into my house and eat what I eat and do all of this. And then I realized you have to let them be people, which is it's a hard thing for me to do because I want you to eat the best food because you're growing my baby.
Right.
But I also chose who I chose because I believed that we shared a lot of values. So she was a doula. And for
That's
me,
cool.
like I wanted a birthy person, somebody that loved birth. And she was it for me. So once I knew her, my worry about like, what are you going to eat in your downtime? And are you going to drink and do all of this went away.
And what's the communication like? Are you texting her every single day? Are you emailing? Are you calling? What's
Not texting every day.
Okay.
I would go to her appointments with her on FaceTime because she was out of state and it was far. I went to a few of the big appointments. But no, it was just like text here and there. We talked a lot more. Like our relationship organically grew from, you have 9 months to get to know each other. We talked every day at the end, but like at the beginning, it was very rare. And I would go to the appointments and it was more of a, there was nothing that was like not organic happening because I couldn't not be authentic. Like I didn't love her right away. I liked her and she had my baby and there was like respect there, but there wasn't like, I love her, but now I like love her. Like I send her flowers on Mother's Day, on my kid's birthday,
And what was your husband's relationship with her, or was there any?
I would say I maintained the relationship, really. She did, while she was pregnant, come out and visit me and stayed at our ranch in Colorado and she has 2 kids, and she brought her kids out. They played with like my kids, but my kids didn't know at the time that she was like caring for me, you know?
At
Nobody knew.
what point, Hope, do you find out that the embryo splits?
I was home alone making pizza with Hendrix. And I get a text message and it says, she sent a picture, one picture.
And how
then
does she
goes,
feel?
Yeah. And then she goes, there's 2 by text. And I said, no, there's only 1 picture. And I called her. I said, what do you mean there's 2? She goes, there's 2. And she's like whispering and in shock, you know, that's just not what we planned. We put in 1 and 1 embryo. What do you mean there's 2? And I kind of lost it in the house and I was like screaming. I was walking around the house and I was going, what do you mean that, like screaming, there's 2, like this is science. Like my immediate thought was somebody messed up. I like thought like they actually, because I had made more than 1 embryo, I thought they accidentally put in 2 and there was a miscommunication, because I just think people don't listen sometimes, and like there was a miscommunication, and then I go, but no, the embryo was right. The embryo split.
When an embryo splits, this is a dumb question, but I have to ask it. If it's let's say you implanted a girl, does it split into 2 girls, or can it split into it can't split into a girl and a boy?
No, 2 girls.
So you have 2 boys already, and you implanted a girl, and then it splits into 2 girls.
Yeah. The best part of the story is like my son is here making pizza with me, and he's hearing all of this, and he's pretty bright, 4, you know, or maybe almost 5. And he looks and he says, Mommy, I made the babies because I asked for 2. You said we're going to get 1. And I said, I put it in the universe and I said, Mommy, I want 2 babies so I can have 1 and Legend can have 1. And I just stared at him in that moment. And I was just like, okay, I've been doing my job because you think you can speak things into the universe and it's going to happen for you. Like, he's 4 or 5. And he immediately took that and said, no, Mom, remember, I told you we're going to have 2 babies.
Wow.
Yeah.
He sounds like a crystal child.
What did I do?
Yeah.
I don't know. He just like believes it, because I tell him, like, I make him rephrase things if it's said, you know, like I want him to like speak things into the universe.
Smart. What part in this journey did you find out it's 2? Do you find out 6 months down? Like, how quick is it?
It was early. It was, how early? It was really early.
It was really early.
Like 10 weeks, 6 weeks, not 6 weeks, probably closer to 10.
So then when the surrogate has the baby and goes into labor,
Babies.
Hospital birth or
Hospital
home?
birth because
Okay.
of twins. Yeah,
Okay, so hospital birth. So you and your husband go to the hospital?
we do. And I'm in Austin. We don't expect the babies for about 5 weeks, but maybe like 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks. And we get the call that her water broke. So I'm like, we immediately go to the plane. We have it set up where we can leave kind of like anytime. Luxury, I know. We couldn't get to the plane fast enough. I mean, I was so rude to my husband, so rude to my own mom that was there to help me, like, get there. Everybody wanted to get there, but nobody could move fast enough, because I was like determined. I was like, I have to be there when they're born. Like, that meant so much to me to see that happen. Like, I couldn't imagine. That's one thing I would have regretted, having a surrogate, if I wasn't able to be there for the birth. Like, that just feels very personal to me. And we somehow made it. She was out of state. We somehow made it, went, and she still was in labor for like another 6 hours. And so, you know, it was like awful to everybody around me trying to get there, and telling my husband, like, why are you driving so slow? And you're stopping at like orange lights, and like, you know, like all the stuff we do, right? And we made it. Yeah.
So when the baby comes out, babies, is it like you just get the babies and you like, what's the process to make
because
it
it was
finesse?
hospital. Okay, so one of the babies wouldn't turn. She ended up with a C-section, which I hate C-section. I loved like cesarean birth instead. But so that was her first. So she was kind of groggy. They take the babies immediately over to weigh them, and they start like cleaning them out. Very different than when you have your baby at home and it goes straight to your chest and you're just like in shock and like, you know, all of this oxytocin. So I'm watching it all, and I was like screaming while it was happening, like more like shrieking, like crying loud, and like
'Cause you're connected.
I didn't know, like, it was just like the craziest thing, because I was getting to watch it. And when you just push the baby out, you're tired, and like you're just like glad it's over for a minute, and then getting to watch your baby be born, it's so special. Like, I can't even describe like the noises that were coming out of me. I'm like, who was that? You know, and later a nurse came into the room and she's like, I've never taken part in a surrogate birth, but this is now my favorite birth I've ever attended because like she saw somebody that was so giving, like my surrogate, who like wanted to do this for somebody that couldn't do it, always knew that she would do it for somebody, like give somebody a baby that couldn't have one. And like watching that happen, like between two women, is like a beautiful thing.
So what does the babies do after they're cleaned off? Do they go
They go to
straight
you.
They go to you.
And I had my own room that was right next to her room.
Got it.
So she had her recovery room with
Okay.
her husband. And Robert and I had our room. And
With
the
the
twins
babies.
came to our room. Yeah. And then my mom came in. And the only way to be there and to put them all in your chest is you actually get in the bed. I didn't have a hospital gown on. I was in clothes. Like I was waiting on the birth. But I'm actually in bed because you can only hold them being in bed. So it looks like I'm like maybe could have given birth somehow, you know, because you have your babies and you're in this hospital bed. But it was, you know, kind of strange because I wasn't actually the one, but you still have a bed because you've got to be able to hold them both and do like the chest, you know, skin to skin. And
How quickly can you take them home? If you're not the one who
they were
gave
born
birth?
at 35 weeks. And I think we only stayed like 2 to 3 nights.
And then was there any weirdness from the surrogate afterwards? Because everyone was going to want to know this question. With the fact that she carried the babies, is there like an entitlement to the babies, or was it not like that at all? Like
It wasn't like that at all because she had
okay.
her babies and her sons came afterwards to visit her. And her sons were going to meet the babies. Like we talked about that ahead of time. And, you know, I didn't have, you know, breast milk and I didn't do all the hormones so that I would. And we talked about this too, where would I like have her breastfeed them so that they could have all of the colostrum and all of the antibodies and things. And I thought that I would be like against it. So we never made that decision, but I actually ended up taking the babies into her and asking her if she would like to. And she actually breastfed my babies to give them like the antibodies. And then she immediately started pumping for me after that. And she pumped and shipped me milk for 9 months.
Holy shit!
Wow, what a
Yeah.
She's a
superhero.
saint.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
I
that
know.
is so nice.
I know.
She shipped you milk
She
for
shipped
9
me
months.
milk for 9 months.
Oh
She had,
my
you know,
god.
I kept paying her to do it for the milk, but she to do it for that long, and she had so much milk. She had twins in 9 months.
And now you guys are friends, and like it's a great relationship, and you're just so happy you did it.
So happy I did it. So thankful for her. Like I wouldn't have my girls if it wasn't for her. Like I might even have only one. Like who knows, you know?
Do you, any cons about it, or do you just the way that you
I
did
honestly really recommend it. Yeah. I don't have anything to say about it. I mean, it was beautiful. I really, it's strange to be able to watch your baby be born, but you're so present that I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Like it was such a gift to like watch it happen and not be the one like in the trauma in the middle of, you know, giving birth.
it? 2 questions. Is it weird not being pregnant and then all of a sudden having 2 babies handed to you? And was it weird for your husband?
I don't know about him. It's probably easier for him because he was never pregnant and like
Yeah, I
just
feel like
always had it handed to him.
Do nothing.
But for
Jack
me,
your meat.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
For me, I think I was more excited for that birth than when I had them myself because it took so much planning. I had to plan them for 2 years and make embryos and find a match and do all of this. It was weird to have 2, but it wasn't weird to like leave with them. Like I felt like they were mine.
And now how old are they?
2.
And like, is it something that you even think about? Like, do you even think about like the surrogacy, or is it not even like?
I don't even remember. Is that crazy? Sometimes I remember that I didn't carry you. And I'm like, how did I not carry you? Like I literally forget that I did not carry them.
Because it's
How's that
all you and
possible?
your husband's DNA. There's nothing that the babies get from the surrogate, correct?
No,
Besides, like,
she's the
food and-
womb.
yeah, the
She
womb.
carries them and that's it. Births them, feeds them.
That is a wild story. You know why I have so much respect for you? There is so many celebrities and influencers that have had surrogates. There are even some that I know that have worn fake stomachs.
Oh God.
And people will not talk about it. And listen, to each its own. If you don't want to talk about it, fine. But you do need some people talking about it, because then it makes people who want to do this feel shameful when when it's like this hush hush secret.
Or what if, you have fertility trouble and you spend a lot of time getting pregnant and you never can kind of get pregnant, and then the doctor says egg donation, and nobody's ever told you that, maybe your cousin is actually from an egg donor, and it's all kept a secret, right? Like, don't keep secrets. Normalizing behaviors and normalizing things helps us prevent a lot of shame. Like, so many people, by normalizing behavior after behavior, you can prevent a lot of shame.
When you came out with this story and shared it on Instagram and you're so open about it, could you believe how many people came? I bet you so many people on Instagram messaged you and have thanked you.
They did, and they say that I inspired like them to finally have that surrogate conversation. Like, they never wanted to have it with their spouse or their family or their egg. Like, some didn't want to have an egg donor, and their husband was completely against an egg donor. And then like learns later that their niece isn't from an egg donor. Like, their own sister had one, but it was never talked about in the family.
I think that
Yeah.
this is such a great conversation to have. I think it takes the energy out of either, like, you just talking about it is so important. Before you go, you started a line that is very popular. I have seen it everywhere. Tell us about that journey and why you decided to do this. And then you have to tell us what the must-have product is, and I'll tell you the one I like most too.
Okay, good. So MUTHA was created. I had stretch marks from puberty, 5'10" and like 12 years old. And I had just growing marks all over, and I didn't want more. And I became pregnant with my first child, and I decided I was going to spend any amount of money to try to not have more. It's a lot of vanity, like being very vain. I went to CVS, I went to all the drugstores, I even went to like Neiman Marcus Group, and I couldn't find something that had whatever their marketing ingredient was as their first or second ingredient on their ingredient list. So like, if you tell me that it's rich in omegas or that you use a certain butter and it's written on the front of your packaging, I want it to be like number 1, 2, or 3 on your ingredient label. Like, don't make me something that's cheap and that you make a huge profit from. Like, that didn't make me very happy. I ended up having to order such huge raw supplies of these ingredients because I started making it in my kitchen for myself, that I had so much excess that I started sending it to friends, they would be in, Los Angeles. I was sending it to Cassandra Gray and different celebrities, and they'd ask for more, and then they'd ask for it for their friends, and everybody had success stories. There were twin pregnancies, and it just became this thing where people would ask for it from out of my own kitchen, and I'd be, out of town, and I'd be thinking about ordering raw ingredients and making body butter for somebody else because I felt responsible that they'd end up with extra stretch marks if I didn't make this butter. Like, it was like this. My husband was addicted to it, and I decided to put it in a lab. And our first product was our body butter, then our body oil. Then we worked with a chemist from MIT to create motherload core technology. And then we made #1 serum and up all night eye cream. And since then we've just, we're in the beauty business now.
It's a movement.
We're moving.
The body butter is absolutely amazing, you guys. You can't go wrong. The body oil, I would highly recommend checking out both of those. You also wrote a book, Your Body is Magic. Tell us about that. Who needs this book?
If you're afraid of birth and you don't like the idea of birth, or if you're freaked out about, anything larger than a penis being in your vagina, like, this is the book for you, because that was me. Like, I was completely terrified of birth. And I couldn't imagine that happening and like being okay afterwards. And so this book is really like this holistic journey that I went on, from vitamins to exercises to tricks, like, from acupuncture to putting primrose oil.
You've learned from the best too. I mean, the people that you've had access to are incredible.
They are. Yeah. You've had them on the show, some of them.
I mean, I've never seen someone who knows their shit more than Mary Mark.
She's almost at 4,000 births. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Can we do a giveaway?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So they'll follow your company on Instagram. Tell us the Instagram handle.
At MUTHA, MUTHA.
Okay. And then can we give away like Hope's favorites?
Yeah, sure.
With your assigned copy of your book?
Yeah, I love that. Yep.
Okay, you guys follow at MUTHA on Instagram. And then tell us your favorite part of this episode with Hope on my latest Instagram. I loved that episode. I learned so much. I'm like taking notes in my brain about everything that you said. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me,
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Where can everyone find you and follow you in your journey?
At Hope Smith.
And you guys look at her highlights because they're really, really informative.
That's so nice.
I went and stalked your pregnancy one, like I said, and I think it's your fertility one.
I could probably help with the Primrose.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just
I don't know.
saying.
Just saying.
I don't know about that right
You'll
now.
probably start it in a couple weeks.